Okay, hold on one second.
All right. She is here.
I
We are
wonder
going to go
why.
ahead and just pin this, get you on. I love it. Welcome, guys. Thank you for tuning in. So, my name is Jacqueline Valdez. So excited for our next guest. So, we are going to be talking about how to prevent ways of burning out, finding strategies, which is so needed. I definitely need this talk.
Hey, could you see me? I think my screen looks black for
I can
some
see you.
reason. You can see me?
I can see you.
Okay.
Yes, I see you, and you look super cute.
All right. Well, thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. So, welcome, guys. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in to Elegant Conversation with Jacqueline Valdez. Super excited for our next guest. So, she used to actually be a journalist and does screenwriting, and we actually know each other from before, which is really fun. She has interviewed me in the past and followed me doing some stuff and some dance stuff. So, we have Miss Nathalie Dortonne. Did I say that right?
Well, door tone, but
Oh,
it's fine.
bad Jackie.
Yes,
All right. So, how are you doing, love?
I'm good. We were actually about to like head down to Florida. I was
Okay.
supposed to go yesterday, but I don't know, it just got so crazy.
Oh
So
no. Oh
that's
no.
why I'm
Yeah.
like in a car, but
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 you're
I'm
here.
doing
You're
well.
here. That's the important part.
Yeah.
So you're in where are you based in now? Because you were in Florida and then you moved to Atlanta?
Yeah, so
Okay.
when I left Gainesville, that was 2015, and then I moved here to Atlanta.
Okay.
So when I moved here, I worked for CNN International and Espanol. So I help with like program scheduling and freelancing. And
Okay.
then after about a year, I transitioned into working in like the film and TV industry.
Yeah,
It was kind of really different from everything I've done with
I can
like
imagine.
politics and journalism. So, still with screenwriting, I see it as storytelling,
Okay.
except obviously it's not like for a newspaper or a news outlet, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to like give myself a chance to tell like stories just like in a different form. I was like,
Okay.
okay, if anything, I can always go back to traditional journalism.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so far it's definitely been like an interesting journey. A
Yeah.
lot of things I didn't know, but I'm
Wow.
enjoying it so far.
Wow, yeah, and it's such a huge shift to go from journalism to creating your own stories. Is it more of a creative kind of flow, and you get to be more expressive with your thoughts?
Well, I would say like I started off doing writing because I always enjoyed like
Uh-huh.
sitcoms because you can talk about like serious issues in a way that still like makes people laugh. So I did like a
Yeah.
sitcom writing class, and the first script I did was a Blackish spec script.
Okay.
So after I kind of learned how to do the spec script, I wrote a couple of pilots and I wrote some more spec scripts.
Wow.
So I think like with storytelling, what I've learned over time is that you kind of have to put a piece of yourself in the story. So it's kind of
I
like you
love
have to
it.
look really deep. And those things that you don't necessarily want to remember, or it's like you just need to put something in the
Yeah.
characters that people see in themselves. So I think that definitely happened with my Insecure spec that placed in like the top 10 of or top 25 of script pipeline out of like 4,000 entries. So I
Wow.
was really surprised because I mean, I've made it to like the quarterfinals and
Uh-huh.
second round of like contests before, but to see that, my work kind of made it up there, and I definitely put a lot of myself in the script, I was
Wow.
like, oh, wow, that definitely is true. Like, you
Yeah, it
need to put
showed.
your truth in there. And I think people can see when you're genuine in your writing and
Yeah.
you can connect to it. And that's what I really love about screenwriting.
Yeah.
So for the past several years, like I've mainly worked as a producer's assistant. So
Okay.
like helping the producers, whether it's like collect like resumes from agencies,
Right.
helping to manage stages, kind of just like whatever they needed a hand with. And
Yeah.
then I would do like my screenwriting after work or like on the weekends.
Okay.
So at this point, it's like I'm going more of the freelance route in terms of like
Nice.
commercial writing. and I'm still doing my screenwriting. So hoping to get an agent or a manager in the next
Yeah.
year. So I'm just kind of polishing my work.
Very
But
cool.
it's definitely been a big transition, especially like in the TV industry.
I can
You work
imagine.
kind of like 12 hours a day. So
Wow.
kind of just like getting into the burnout thing. I
It's
mean,
huge.
yeah, I'm kind of used to working long hours as a journalist, but kind of being not even just 12 hours, but factoring the time you have to drive to work, drive back home,
Right.
and then stay like, after wrap or like the additional time you have to put in on the weekends. It can be very draining. And I think before I had my daughter, who's actually turning one in a few
Yes.
days,
Congrats.
over here. Thank you.
Cute.
Before I had my daughter, I think that I never really got like 6 or 8 hours of sleep. I think I was always getting like maybe like 4 or 3 hours at a
Okay.
time, just because, I'd maybe be like laying on the couch.
That's
Yeah,
me.
I have my computer open,
Yeah.
and then I would always feel like guilty that I wasn't working.
Yeah.
I think, especially coming from an immigrant family, like people are always working around the clock. So I never really got the concept of,
Yeah.
just like relaxing, turn the light off, go to bed.
Yeah.
So I think that definitely contributed to like some anxiety because I was just like, I have to keep working. So I think doing that
Interesting.
continuously over time kind of led to a slow burnout. And it's only recently that I've kind of
Wow.
learned how to take care of myself
Yeah.
in the sense that, getting more sleep, eating well, at least trying to do some exercise and not solely focus on work, because I
Right.
think a lot of the time, you're always trying to get to the next gig.
Yes.
You're always trying to like, do the best you can. But I realized that I was kind of sacrificing my health
Wow.
in order to get there. But I really love like Ariana Huffington. She's like a really big proponent of, like she's a really big advocate for sleep. I think she wrote a whole book about it. She has like her company Thrive Global, and
Okay.
she is all about like preventing burnout and like
Ah, girl,
employees and people.
this was meant because I
Yes.
am like having burnout, I think. I'm like
Oh,
not sleeping.
definitely.
I'm like around the clock, constantly thinking of work. And like you said, going to the next gig or wanting to keep working.
Hmm. And I think especially during like Corona and
Yeah.
COVID, it's kind of just like, okay, what can I be doing to kind of just keep myself out there? But you
Yeah.
can't really go out of the house. And then I don't know, especially like for women and for moms, sometimes we feel a bit more of the pressure, because whether it's like we have to take care of the family or, we just have a lot more on our plate. So I feel like, especially for us, when we get burned out, I feel a lot more people are affected
Yeah.
because we tend to be caring for others. But then it's like when it comes to us, we may not take as good care of ourselves. So,
Wow.
it's definitely something I've had to work on, and it's so important. I wish I had known that earlier, the
Yeah.
importance of kind of getting sleep. I mean, I'm not at the point where I don't sleep by my phone, but I know people who like don't have their phone in the room.
Yeah.
They leave it outside, use an alarm clock. I know that's the ideal way. Some people meditate, but I think if you can kind of like detach from technology or do something
Okay.
just make yourself, like calm or feel better and
Right.
not just focus on work. I think that's super important, whether you're a mom or whether you're just like working or
Yeah.
freelancer, especially for freelancers, it's really like stressful for us.
Yeah,
But
I can imagine.
yeah.
Wow. How do you separate or like detach your mind from thinking about like writing that next script, creating that next story, going to the next level?
Hmm. So for me, it's like, so I work with a therapist of mine that I
Okay.
started seeing, like after my daughter was born and I was dealing with postpartum.
Okay.
So what I would kind of explain to her, going back to what I said, is like how I'd always feel like some sort of guilt for not working.
Yeah.
And she was basically saying if I kept going at the rate I was going, eventually I would not only burn out, but I would get like very sick,
Wow.
maybe end up in the hospital. And that's not something you really, think about.
Yeah.
So for me,
Wow.
what I kind of had to do was make a schedule of like every part of my day, wake up, brush, make breakfast, work for this amount of time, in the house for this amount of time,
Yeah.
like an hour for self-care, whether it's like,
Okay.
watching a show or like, getting a drink that I like. Because if not, I think I would just be working day and night. So
Yeah.
for me, it's like, I like maybe watching a show on Netflix or,
I love it.
just like drinking something, just sitting on the couch and
Yeah.
not just like thinking about everything I have to get done. So for me, I'm at the point where I'm like, if I'm tired, I do not push myself to go over my limit. I realize that,
Right.
hey, I can go to sleep and I can wake up tomorrow because the extra time that I'm thinking and worrying about what I'm not doing, I
Yeah.
could actually be like sleeping. So it's kind of just like getting rid of that should be mentality. Like, I should be
Okay.
doing this, I should be doing that, because none of that is like real. It's all stuff like you're imagining. Like, you
Yeah.
should be like, working X amount of hours when that's not the case. There's only so much that we can push ourselves
Yeah.
to do
It's very true.
without, like making ourselves sick or not taking
Wow.
care of ourselves. So for me, it's like mainly like watching TV or like getting something that I like
Yeah.
to.
Nice. Yeah, and it's so true, like you said, that you had found that you were having some anxiety. And I've been having some anxiety issues too. And I'm like, is it that I'm not sleeping? Is it that I'm always constantly thinking about worrying about having to get so much done and
Mhm.
feeling guilty too that I didn't do enough because I'm such a go-getter and such a hard worker and I'm like always hustling. So I'm taking your tips and your advice and I'm gonna write these down and I'm gonna start doing this.
And sometimes with anxiety, I feel like on TV, like people present it as like you're fidgeting all the time. You're like, oh my
Yeah,
gosh, what's happening? When
it's
that's
not.
not the case, I know like for me, like my anxiety um, presented itself in a way that I couldn't really control it. Like, let's say if I'm
Yeah.
sitting at the desk and someone's walking into the room, it's like they don't even have to really make any noise. I'll just like, get startled, but it's an automatic reaction.
Yes.
Probably just like in that fight or flight mode, just
Yes.
because I am so,
That was me.
like worried about what I'm doing. But
Wow.
I'm automatically doing that. But I had to kind of explain to people it's not something that I really have any control over. So I have to be really that and work on not, startling myself, like if someone's coming from behind. So
Yeah.
that's like the way that my anxiety presented itself. I know, like, you kind of see it exaggerated on TV, like,
It is.
people are having panic attacks, and some people do, but other times it's kind of just like stuff that is very subtle.
Yeah.
So I know if I'm tending to get more like fidgety, or if I have more on my mind, I notice that I'll kind of just like be a little more jumpy. So that I kind of have to sit
Okay.
back and realize, I just kind of like have to take it easy. And
Wow.
especially like after my daughter was born, the anxiety, like for example, it was so hard for me to drive for a couple of months. I think only up until a couple of months ago, I did
Okay.
not like driving on the road, especially after she was born, because I always felt like the cars were too close to me, or
Yeah.
I felt like I would get into an accident, and that's not something I ever feared before,
Interesting.
she
Okay.
she was around. So I
Yeah.
think between a mix of like hormones and like the underlying anxiety I hadn't dealt with, it
Yeah.
was presenting itself in different ways. So that's kind of like when I realized, I definitely, need help to get back on track. I
Right.
think for a long time, I tried to manage it by myself, but I realized, it's very helpful to have like, whether it's therapist or a friend to talk to
Okay.
kind of just like keep you motivated, keep you on track, let you
Yeah.
know that, you're not alone. So I think definitely communication is helpful,
That's huge.
and not feeling like, shame for being burnt out. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of companies like praise the burnout culture. Like,
Yeah,
if you're working nonstop, they're
that's
like,
true.
okay, you're like not sleeping. I think that that's also something that people kind of praise, like, okay, you're working 24/7, you're not sleeping,
Yeah,
you have to work, after like maybe 2 hours of sleep when it shouldn't be that way. So
so
I think
true.
it's kind of like a misconception in society.
Yeah,
And
so
it
bad.
took a while for me to realize, okay, I need to get sleep.
Yeah,
If I'm not answering my email at midnight or 1 a.m., it's
yeah,
okay.
it's
It's
okay.
till the
I
morning.
love that. I love that. I'm going to say that to myself tonight, and I'm going to think of you, girl, because I've also had anxiety really bad where I couldn't drive for a period of time. And I still have anxiety if it's like more than 30 minutes. I have panic attacks driving because of car accidents I've been in.
Mhm.
So I totally understand from, like you said, the small anxiety to just little fidgety to just more anxiousness to the full fledged panic attack. So it's definitely scary, and it's something definitely that I'm wanting to make a change with and to, recharge as my best friend Jason, who's on the line with us right now, J Rex, is always like, and I think, did you meet him maybe? He was the one singing
Um,
when I danced.
okay, I think I did.
I think,
I think
yeah,
he's
when
in
we
the
did the
picture that
pictures.
I.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, but he's always like telling me, rest, decompress, recharge, and it's true. So, I definitely want to take that in. And I feel like you said, society makes it okay to burn out. And, it's expected and, oh, just kind of get over it. So this is a
Mhm.
huge topic that, not many people talk about. And I have so much respect that you're wanting to share this and share your journey and help others.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
like there's this meme online
Uh-huh.
that I see circulated where it's like kind of like if you were to end up in the hospital today, they would just replace you tomorrow, like your job or
Yeah.
whatever. So it's like if you don't take care of your health and yourself, then it's like you only have one of you, your job is always going to be there. And if it's not,
Yeah.
you'll find another one because if something were to happen, if something critical were to happen to you, it's like they would just find someone else to replace
Yeah.
you, unfortunately,
Yeah.
no matter how much we love our work. But, that's just the reality.
That's true.
Sometimes companies are more about the bottom line as
Yeah.
opposed to like letting employees get, mental health days or actually
Yeah.
check on how they're doing. So I
Wow.
think that's also something to be mindful of. And
Okay.
especially like working in the film and TV industry,
Yeah.
it's like since we're, freelance, and especially like if you're an assistant, you're not really part of a union.
Mm.
So obviously it's like you're not really getting insurance. So if you were to have to pay for like doctor's appointments,
Yeah.
etc., you have to pay out of pocket. And, sometimes the salary that you're getting can't really afford certain services. So it's
Yeah.
like you kind of have to, do the work and make sure you're not like pushing yourself because, sometimes you don't really have the benefits to kind of pay for certain things.
Yeah.
So
That's
if
so
they're
true.
not giving you insurance, if they're not, compensating you
Wow.
properly, you have to figure out is your mental health like worth
Worth it.
sacrificing for a position.
Yeah, that's so true. I love that you said that because I do feel like a lot of people have sacrificed their own well-being for other people and then it doesn't get it doesn't get rewarded, or like you said, you're easily replaceable, and it's not because you are easily replaceable, it's because the company and the bottom line.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Do you find that it's a lot more common in the film industry?
Um, I think that people who are like who've been working for a while, they're more of the kind to be like, hey, don't call me until it's call time.
Okay.
I'm not really going to be answering things after X amount of time.
Right.
But as an assistant, you don't really get to make those commands like, oh, hey,
Right.
don't email me after like 9 p.m. So I think
Yeah.
people who have been working in the industry longer, they tend to like put their foot down.
Okay.
But I think definitely I think burnout has become so part of like the TV and film culture
Yeah.
that I don't think people really talk about it. So I think they just got acclimated to it.
Okay.
And you know, it really is difficult. I mean, especially like for moms, um, you know, sometimes people are a little hesitant about hiring moms. I
Yeah.
know, uh, you know, one of the supervisors, like a mom came in to interview for a position, and after she left, she just told us, "I'm not gonna hire her because she has like a kid and she's gonna be like having to like pick up the kid, or it's like gonna be worrying about them." So
Wow.
it's kind of like for us, people assume that we're not going to be able to handle, you know, the amount of pressure or the work.
Right.
And sometimes I guess it's just assumed that, you know, men are going to be able to like handle the brunt of it. You know, they're going to be able to
Interesting.
handle the long hours, you know,
Yeah.
they're going to be able to handle the workload when that's not necessarily true. I think that everything is important, like with a balance.
Yeah.
So, say if you were working for a couple of months on a show, it may be good to kind of just like make sure like your weekends you take it to yourself, or at
Okay.
least maybe take a break in between. Because I know I've been in positions where I would be on a show like back to back to back, and then I
Wow.
was kind of just like going through the motions. I mean, still doing my work like exceptionally well, but
Yeah.
I was kind of just like moving robotically and not taking time to spend time with my friends. Or
Right.
it's like if someone would ask me, what do I do for fun? I would kind of just say, well, I work on like my writing, but I didn't really do anything like with my friends. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, wow, I don't really have any hobbies outside of work and building my portfolio.
Yeah.
So kind of like this is a new thing for me where it's like, oh, wow, people like go out and have like brunch with their friends on the
Yeah.
weekend. You know, they go swimming, you know, they go running
Yeah.
because you don't really have time to do any of that. You know, if you're waking up at 7 a.m. and getting back home at 11, and then you
Yeah.
have to do the same thing the
You
next
have enough
day.
time.
So I think learning how to find the balance is a little difficult, but it's definitely worth it when you
But it's,
do.
yeah, doable. Wow. So you went from journalism to screenwriting. What tip would you give someone who is wanting to get into the industry and wants to either be a journalist or wants to go into screenwriting?
Sure. So for me, what I did when I came to Atlanta and I worked for CNN, I did that specifically because I knew a lot of film productions were in Atlanta, and I was like, okay, let me have my day job,
Yeah.
and then after work, I'll like volunteer with like Atlanta Film Festival, Atlanta Film Society.
Nice.
So I still had like my day job to like pay my bills, but then like on the weekends or you know when there were events, I would go and kind of learn about you know, what screenwriting is, what are the events that are.
Very
So
cool.
what I would recommend is people definitely keep their day job because I think
Yeah.
there's this mentality that, oh, in order to succeed in the TV or film industry, you have to kind of just like be in it full time. But
Right.
unfortunately, that's not really possible depending on like what kind of bills you have and especially the hours that you have to work.
True.
So I definitely think it's possible, like, well, one, to keep like your day job, and two, like just find people in your community who are doing what you want to do,
Right.
connect with them like on Facebook or Meetup. Like for us, we have Atlanta Film where people can kind of post about different projects,
Okay.
um, you know, like get involved with projects on the weekend. The weekends are a great time to kind of utilize your time as well. And
Yeah.
as far as like journalism, I mean, I always knew I was like a writer and a storyteller.
Yeah.
So what I would recommend, I think like podcasts are becoming a really big thing. I
Yes.
wish I kind of knew about podcasts like back in school.
Nice.
Because there were podcasts were popular, but it wasn't as popular as it is now. So
Yes.
like as you're doing, people are having their own like TV shows, their own interview shows. Podcasts are like super popular as well. So you can literally build your own audience online.
Yeah.
You know, there are people I watch on YouTube to kind of, you know, just get an update on what's going on. And they're not professionals, but, you know, the internet has definitely opened things up, you know,
It really
especially
has.
filmmakers. You know, everything is kind of going digital, and the people from Hollywood are looking online to kind of see what's popular.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, that's definitely important to utilize the resources that you have.
Okay.
And just like realize there's no one way to kind of get in.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like I'm always taking classes to like boost my screenwriting skills.
Nice.
Something that I didn't study, but I'm just like always like getting feedback, working on examples,
Yeah.
and eventually get better. So I mean, whatever it is someone is trying to do, kind of just like one find people who are involved, kind of like invest in yourself,
Okay.
invest in like classes, invest in workshops.
I love
I know that there's this perception that writing is free, but especially what I've learned with screenwriting is like
uh
the contest fees definitely add up. Like a contest fee, depending on when you enter, it goes up after periods of
Yeah,
time.
I can
You
imagine.
can easily spend like $70 per contest fee, which is honestly like what the cost of like your grad school application. And
Right.
there's no guarantee that you'll ever like place in the contest. But
Okay.
unfortunately, you need to kind of at least get a couple of like not placements, but even if you get quarterfinals or better, agents and managers will kind of start to look at you.
Okay.
But I had no idea that contest fees were so expensive, and like
Wow.
screenwriting classes easily go from like 500 and up just for a couple of weeks. So I
Wow.
think those are a lot of the hidden expenses
Yeah.
that people don't really talk about. They're kind of just like, oh yeah, just pick up your phone and shoot. And it's like, oh, absolutely not.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
not like
that's
that.
my thing. I mean, when you're doing your first kind of shorts, you can like use like a DSLR or, whatever kind of camera you want. But what I've learned over time is
Uh-huh.
like quality definitely matters. And
Yeah.
like for this short form series that we recently did, um, you know, we shot it like on like a red, we have professional sound and everything. But what we're realizing is that post-production is a very costly process. I
Yeah.
don't think that we intended to kind of spend as much as we're going to. So kind of when we heard the cost of what everything's going to be, we just had to like sit back and say, okay, what's a way that we can kind of post production in a way that's affordable, but will also
Right.
put out a quality product that we can get distribution for
Nice.
online. So basically, it's like the length of a feature, but it's cut up into like different episodes.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
this was definitely a great learning lesson because
Yeah.
I mean, going in, it's like I just use my knowledge of production um, in terms of like breaking down the schedule and like
Wow.
setting everything up. But when it came to post production, I had like absolutely no idea it would be so costly.
Yeah, it adds
So it's
up.
like, yeah, it's like, how are you going to be able to afford to do your own productions if you're
Yeah.
barely being paid? So that's why I said it's actually great if people have a day job and they can save,
Yeah.
from that job and then shoot their stuff
Nice.
on the weekend. Because the reality is, like, if you're working as an assistant, it's very hard to kind of save up to do your own project,
I could see
which
that.
honestly is going to cost like a couple $1,000s, if not more. And how are you supposed to do that when you're making like,
Yeah.
I don't know,
Barely need it.
700 and so a week and you have rent and everything? So it's kind of just like you have to find a way that works for you. I mean,
Okay.
some people like, enjoy being a PA. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it because you definitely get connections, you
Yeah.
get knowledge. I mean, I've been like a producer's director assistant for the past couple of years. But now I'm just like at a point where it's like I kind of want to go to the next level,
Yeah.
so like
Next level.
co-producer, associate producer, and then still
Nice.
produce my own projects.
Nice.
So, and I'm also getting into commercial writing as
Nice.
well. So kind of just like doing whatever you have to do to
Yeah.
like make your dreams come true. So
I
that's
love
kind of
it.
just like my journey in a
Yes,
nutshell.
I love it. So many good tips. Before we go, what is it that you want to be remembered for?
I would say I want to be remembered as someone who touched at least one other person's life. I think that's really important for me. Like when I was growing up, you know, as I said, I had come from like an immigrant family,
Yeah.
so you don't really like hang out with your friends like that. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes, but for the most part, you're just like studying at home. So when I would watch like TV and, some movies, I would feel like, oh wow, I love these characters. Like this
Wow.
stuff really resonated with me. I mean, I would love one day to create a show that people feel like, wow, this really inspired me, whatever it is. I know recently A Different World had its reunion, and
Uh-huh.
that was a show that inspired a lot of African Americans to go to college. So it's like, I just want to be able to create something that resonates with someone and inspires them to do something great. And I also want to be remembered as someone who
Oh,
cared, because I think at the end of the day, people kind of forget what you did, but they don't forget how you made them feel.
yeah.
So
So
the
true.
main thing for me.
So true. Oh, well, it has been such a pleasure. You are a huge inspiration and you have given so many tips. I'm going to definitely note them down and do them. It was so good to reconnect with you again.
You. And how
Yes,
have you been doing? I don't think I asked that at the beginning
I
of the
have been doing
interview.
really well, super busy.
And I love your photo shoots that you're doing. I mean,
Oh,
after I did your photo story, I was like, wow, I mean, it turned out like really great, but I see like you're doing like your different shoots and everything is
yes,
going really well. So, I'm
yes.
super excited for you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a journey for sure.
Yes. And honestly, if you're interested in kind of getting into like the TV and film side,
Yes.
like I know, for example, with P Valley, they actually had like a pole instructor, I think, like help with the girls. So it's like there are those different shows out there. It's like,
Yeah.
for example, there's like intimacy coordinators. So it's kind of like you're on set when the actors are doing sex scenes, but it's like definitely people need like those choreographers, whether it's
Yeah.
like something involves like a pole or something, just because it takes so much like stamina and most people can't do that. So
Yeah.
I think that's definitely a great way, kind of just like keep your eye out. I think
Okay.
a nice way to kind of get your foot in the industry and still do something that you love. Like you'd be
Yeah.
surprised, like the people that productions hire to kind of consult
Wow.
what's going on.
Wow.
So,
I would totally be interested. Yeah. Definitely. I'm going to have to reach out to you later.
sure, no problem.
Yes. We'll have to continue the chit chat.
Yes, no
Yes.
problem.
It has been a pleasure.
All right.
Take care,
Thank
love.
you. You
Thank you
too.
guys for tuning in.
Thank you guys.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye.